Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Respecting everyone's time, I think we shall start now. Once again, thanks for joining in. I'm Rajdeep Punir. I am the co-founder and CEO at ReWiser. And as you are aware, for today's webinar, we're going to talk about SATs, ACTs, and AP exam. And the objective for today's webinar is going to be if I can help you understand about these exams and also help you understand in terms of which is the right test for your child. Also, what is the right time for you to write this exam, right? So I think that's going to be the major objective. We will talk about what are the four major pillars of college application. What's the right time for you to start? We're largely focusing on study abroad undergrad. That's the broader theme for today. And in specific, we're going to talk about standardized tests like SATs, ACTs, APs. We'll talk about which, when, and how to write these exams. What are the changes which have happened in the new digital format, which has started from the March 2023 onwards. If in case, the format is very straightforward. For the next 35-40 minutes, I'll walk you through the entire presentation. If in case you guys have any questions while I'm presenting, feel free to put it up in the chat section. We will take each and every question post the webinar. Also, at the end, if in case you would like to raise your hand and then ask the question directly, feel free to do that as well. We won't take any question in the first 30 minutes. We will start taking up the question after the presentation is done. Thank you. But please feel free to put up the question in the chat section so that you don't miss out on it. Just a quick brief about the company. So ReWiser is a high school support company which has been assisting students worldwide achieve their high school academic goals. That's our main objective. We work with students from as early as grade 8th and grade 9th, and we work until grade 12th. So 4 primitive years is where we work with these students. We largely have two major verticals within the company. The first one is test prep, where we focus on SATs, ACTs, and AP exam, IELTS exam, even PSAT as well. And then we have the other vertical, which is in the academic tutoring domain, where we help students with IGCSE, IB, and A-level subject tutoring. We work with students directly. We work with a lot of international schools. We currently in India, we work with about 8 international schools across India. So we have a B2B and B2C engagement. Over the last 7 years, we've helped about 4,000 odd families, worked with 8, and all these students are ranging from almost about 10 to 12 countries as we speak, and about 15 plus cities across India. With that, let me jump on to today's topic. And as I said, I think let's try and first of all, before I even get into the exams, I think let's try and understand what's the difference between when you're looking at study abroad versus when you're looking at study in India, right? So these are two different things when you really look at it. The study abroad as an objective, and when I talk about study abroad, I'm predominantly talking about US, UK, Canada, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia. So I've broadly covered everything, though there are slight nuances in each of these countries which might change from topic to topic. However, on a broad level, all of them are very, very similar, right? So the major difference between when you're looking at study in India versus study in abroad is in India, they're largely looking at and focus towards your grade 12 scores, right? If they have to look at your exam scores, that's only your board results, or else you write specific entrance exam. For example, you write JEE for engineering, you write NEET for medicine, you write CUET, and so on and so forth. Unlike that, in study abroad, things are very, very different. They largely take your admission based on 4 different parameters, and I call them as 4 pillars. The first pillar is academics. If you really look at it, they're largely looking at your 4 years of school grade, which is grade 9th, grade 10th, grade 11th actual scores, and your grade 12 predicted scores. And the reason why I said predicted scores, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but when you're applying to outside of India, you're almost applying a year earlier, right? So let's say if you want to apply for August 2024, you will actually start applying by August, September of 2023. Hence, you will not have your 12th grade final scores when you're applying. Hence, the school will have to give you a predicted scores. So in terms of academics, your 9th, 10th, 11th actual scores and your 12th grade predicted scores are super, super important. Then you come to the next pillar, which is standardized test scores. Here, there is one single test, which is SAT or ACT. Please note it's or and not and. You have to write one of these exams if you are looking to go outside of India, predominantly US, Canada, in this particular terms. And these exams are something that you have to write irrespective of the major that you want to do. Doesn't really matter whether it's engineering, medicine, law. For everything, you have to write the same set of exam, unlike in India where you have specialized exam for each of the entrances, right? So that's another difference. And then you have to write IELTS or TOEFL depending on And that's largely the English proficiency exam, which can be done at a later stage as well. So that's in your standardized test score. Similarly, there's another exam called APs, which is advanced placement courses. We will cover a very, very brief about it, maybe in 1 or 2 slides today. And in the next webinar that we have, I think that's on the APs. Feel free to attend that if you would like to understand more about it. So that's the standardized test. The third pillar is profile building. Now, what is that? Profile building is nothing but a way to showcase to the college that this candidate is a good potential for this particular major and this particular college, right? So for example, if a student wants to pursue computer science engineering in, let's say, the top 20, top 30 universities, then what are the activities that they should be doing over the last 2 to 3 years to showcase to the college that they're genuinely interested in this, right? So that could be internship, research work, MOOC courses, Coursera courses, social service, community service, and things like that, right? So all of that clubbed together becomes your profile building activity. However, it's not about doing like a checkbox and try and do everything. It's all about figuring out what is the right thing for you to do and then stick to it, do it in depth, and it should ideally be somehow related to the major that you really want to do. Ideally, that's the ideal case scenario. That's the profile building. Then the fourth pillar that they're also looking at is the college application, which actually happens only in grade 12, which includes shortlisting of your universities and then applying to universities, which includes writing a lot of essays, right? Because let's say, for example, if you're applying to 10 universities, you're literally writing at least 25 to 30 essays in grade 12. So essays becomes a super component, and then you have letter of recommendations and so on. So these are 4 major pillars. The first 3 will happen between grade 9 to grade 11. The last pillar is largely focused on grade 12, right? So that's how the timeline will look like. With that, let me deep dive into the second pillar, which is the standardized test that we want to specifically talk about in today's webinar. Let's start with the first test, which is SET. And as I'm sure all of you are aware that SET is a digital exam now. It's no longer a pen and paper exam. It's an online exam. You still have to go to the center and write this exam, but it'll happen on the device. You could either carry your own device, or you could do it on the system provided by the school where you are writing the exam. The SET is conducted by an organization called College Board. It's a US-based organization. It's a non-for-profit organization. SET happens 7 times a year. So for example, the next SET is actually happening next Saturday, which is 26th of August. So there is August, there is October, November, December, March, May, and June. So digital SET happens 7 times a year. It's an online exam. It's 2 hours, 14-minute test. And there are broadly testing you on 2 major sections. One of them is English, the other one is maths. Under English, they're largely testing your reading and writing comprehension skills. And maths is up until grade 10th level math, and we'll see in detail in terms of the topic that they test you on. It's required by most of the US colleges. And additionally, it also helps in many other geographies. When I say required by most US colleges, the reason why I say most US colleges, because I'm sure if you've started doing research for the admissions, you probably would have maybe encountered 3 different terms. And one of them is test optional, test blind, and test mandatory. So let me start with the first one, test mandatory. Any college which says they are test mandatory, that means you have to have the SAT or the ACT scores in place if you want to apply to these colleges. For example, MIT, Purdue are some of the colleges which are test mandatory. You cannot apply without having the SAT scores. Then you will encounter the second term, which is test blind. Now, test blind are the colleges which does not require you to submit your SAT scores at all. Even if you will submit, they will not look at it. The only universities which are test blind are universities in California. All universities across California are test blind. You don't have to have the SAT score. So if you're very, very clear that you only want to apply to California, then you don't have to write the SAT or the ACT exam. The third term that you would encounter is test optional, and that is the most trickiest term. Now, what ended up happening, unfortunately, during the pandemic, there were a lot of countries where SAT could not have happened. And because of that, some of the colleges, actually a lot of colleges came forward and they said, we want to make it a level playing field by waiving off the test requirement. And they said, we will be test optional. So if in case you have done it, you can submit it. If you have not, you can skip the exam altogether. And that's when the test optional came into existence. However, if you really look at the last 3-year data from India, any student who has applied to test optional university without the SAT scores was at a disadvantage. and they were largely given under the waitlist admissions, right? So strong recommendation, if in case you're applying to any university which is test optional, try and make sure you have the test scores and you're applying with the SAT scores. Until unless you have not done well at all in the SAT scores, then maybe you can skip it. Otherwise, you should submit your SAT scores. I hope that answers a lot of myth which goes around that, hey, you know what, a lot of universities are waiving off. Please read the terms very, very carefully, whether it's test optional, test blind, or test mandatory, and then take those calls. The second line here that I mentioned is helps in many other geographies. The reason why I say many other geographies, because apart from US, you can also submit your SAT scores in countries like Singapore, Canada, Australia, India. There are almost about 40 plus universities as we speak today, which are currently accepting SAT scores. And I think I have a list of all those universities as well at the end. So I'll show you those universities also. So it's not just for US. There are a lot of other universities which are accepting SAT scores. Now, as I said, SAT is digital exam. Additionally, it is also an adaptive exam. That means depending on your performance in section 1, your next module will get decided. So for example, if I have not done well in first section of English, my second section of English is going to be a lot more easier. However, let's say there's another student who has done fairly well in section 1 of English. The section 2 of English is going to be a lot more difficult for that student. So it's an adaptive exam. There'll be only 2 sections, as I said, which is English and maths. You can use your own devices. You have a clock on the screen, which will help you with the time management. You can easily move between the questions. You can assess all the maths formulas in one place. So all these are advantages that you will see with the digital SAT. Now, how's it different? So I think some of the changes which has happened, the test is obviously shorter now. It used to be a 3-hour long exam earlier. Now it's a 2-hour, 14-minute test. One of the major change that has happened in English section, where earlier there used to be long passages. So you have to read the long passages and answer, let's say 10 questions per each passage. However, now that's gone. You only have a para and a question. So you have to read one para and you have to answer one question. So, so questions are a lot more concise now. They're a lot more straightforward. You have more time per question and you have lesser number of questions to answer. You're allowed to use calculator all throughout the math section, which was not the case earlier. Scores are also available in days and not weeks. So because it's an online exam, the result comes out much faster. Now, you might have this question, right? That here, Rajiv, you said it's adaptive and, you know, the difficulty level of question will, or the paper will vary for each individual. Then how would the scoring works, right? Because if in case you get a easy paper because of not doing well in first one, you might be at an advantage, right? But that's not the case. So how the scoring really works is like this, right? So if you look at, let's assume we are talking about English section and there are 2 stages in each of the section. In English, you have stage 1, stage 2. In maths, you have stage 1, stage 2. Let's say I write the stage 1 exam of English and I score 9 out of 10. That means I fall in this bracket. That means my stage 2 English paper is going to be easier. However, at the same point of time, my lower and upper limit of my score, SAT score for English, is also fixed. Even if I do everything right in stage 2, I can only score a maximum of 560 points and a minimum of 440 points. That's the problem, right? If you, let's say, for example, if there's some other student who has done really well in stage 1 and let's say got 17 out of 20, they have a stage 2 difficult paper. However, their upper limit is 800, lower limit is 680. So even if they end up doing really bad in stage 2, they still get a 680 because they have done well in stage 1. That's how the adaptiveness works. And hence, it becomes super important to make sure you're doing really well in your stage 1, because that determines your lower limit and upper limit of your overall sectional scores, right? That's how the scoring really works in terms of the adaptiveness. Now, what's the number of questions, how the scoring works? There are, in English for reading and writing, you will have a total of 54 questions, 64 minutes. You can score minimum of 200 and maximum of 800. Similarly, on math, you have a total of 44 questions and you have 70 minutes to solve these questions. Again, very similar. You have minimum of 200 points, maximum 800 points. So overall, the maximum that you can score is 1600. The minimum that you can score is 400 points. The total number of questions are 98 and you have about 134 minutes to solve these questions. Now let's try and deep dive into individual sections. The first one is English, as I said. And again, English is a 2-stage adaptive test design. So you'll have English stage 1, stage 2. In both of them, you will have a total of 27 questions, out of which 25 are operational questions. That means they will be accounted towards your final score. However, there are 2 questions which are pre-test or experimental questions. That means they will not be accounted towards your final score. However, there's a catch here. As a student, when you are attempting these exam, you wouldn't know which are these 2 questions. So you have to do all the 27 questions, considering they are the main final important questions, right? Now you will have 32 minutes to solve these 27 questions, and this will repeat for the next stage as well. Hence, you will have a total of 54 questions, 64 minutes. That means you'll have roughly about 1.19 minute per question. And this is very, very important to note at this point of time. Average time for SAT English is 1.19 minute per question. And when I'm talking about ACT, I'll come back and compare this as well. Now, what are they testing you on? You will generally have, as I said, short reading passages followed by multiple choice question. They're largely focusing on 4 major content domains, which we will see in the next slide. The test is divided into 2 modules that we've already discussed. The passages are largely taken up from literature, history, social studies, humanities, sciences, and that's the key here. Over the last 7 years, one thing which has remained consistent as Asian students, I think the place where we are not able to do great is reading section. And one of the reasons is maybe because we are not very avid readers, and our curriculums are not designed in such a way that it really helps in terms of SAT English. One of my advice, if you're a parent and if you're a student who's in grade 9th and 10th, one of my suggestions would be that start reading articles. Don't just read fictional, read all sort of articles, because they're not just testing you on fictions. They will test you on literature, history, social studies, humanities, sciences, and so on and so forth. So maybe pick up articles like Wall Street Journal, maybe pick up article like Washington Post from different zoners and start reading it. Maybe one article a day would really, really help. But reading is one of those areas, if you really want to do well in this exam, I think English and specifically reading is the point which kind of limits you from doing great in these exams. Start early. I think that would really help. What are they testing you on? There are 4 major content domains. As I said, first one is craft and structure, information and ideas, which is largely testing your reading comprehension skills. How well can you comprehend the passage, the para which is given to you, and then do some correlation and answer the question. So that's what they're largely testing you on. The standard English convention and expression of ideas are largely testing your grammar skills. How well are you with the standard English conventions, sentence structure, usage, punctuation, semicolon, colon, dashes, all those grammar rules is what is being tested under these 2 categories. So these are 4 major content domains in which you will be testing in your SAT. Now, in the math section, again, just like English, it's a 2-stage adaptive exam. There are a total of 22 questions in each of the stage. Just like SAT, just like English, you have 20 operational questions and 2 experimental questions. And you have roughly about 35 minutes to solve these questions. In total, in the 2 stages, you have roughly about 44 questions, 22 in each, and roughly about 70 minutes to solve these questions. That means you have about 1.59 minutes per question. And again, this is very, very important to note here. You have roughly about 1.59 minutes per question in the SAT math section. And I'll come back to this again when I'm talking about the ACT, and hence I'm emphasizing on the time which is given to you. Now, what are the topics that they test you on? They're largely categorized into 4 categories. As I've already mentioned in the very beginning, they only test you up until grade 10th level maths. You can classify them into algebra, problem solving and data analysis, advanced math, geometry and trigonometry. And one of the most important thing to note here is under geometry and trigonometry, you only have about 10 to 15% of your portions, right? That's again an important point to note here. SAT math is very, very algebra heavy. You have almost about 75 to 80%, or rather 85% portion, which is just algebra, and only about 10 to 15% portion, which is non-algebra, which is coming from geometry and trigonometry. So these are the 4 major content domains that they test you on. Now, that's all about the SAT in terms of the topics that you will encounter, how many times exam happens, and so on. Now, there is another exam, which is ACT. And as I said in the very beginning, it's not SAT and ACT, it's or ACT. So you have to do only one exam. Please note, not both the exams. You have to pick the right exam for you. And I think one of the objective of this webinar is, I would consider the webinar to be successful if I am able to help you take that call and decide between SAT or the ACT, right? So let me start talking about the ACT, but my objective here is going to be more of compare and contrast. I would like to compare between the 2 and figure out which is the right test for you, right? Now, let's start with what are the points which are similar between SAT and ACT, right? Just like SAT, ACT is also an online exam. It is also conducted by an organization called act.org. It also happens 7 times a year. So very similar like SAT. So you have a lot of options to write this exam as well. So from that perspective, this exam is very, very similar. You still have to go to a center and write the exam. That center could be a school, it could be a exam, it could be a, in some cases, tech companies and so on. However, one difference, you cannot carry your own devices in ACT. You can carry your own devices in SAT, but for ACT, you have to use the systems which are already provided by the institute which is offering the exam. That's one major difference that you will encounter. The other most important difference is this exam is a longer exam as compared to SAT. It's a 2-hour, 55-minute exam. So it's longer than SAT. Plus, there is a 40-minute optional essay component, which is no longer part of SAT. So you don't have an essay in SAT. However, in ACT, you have an optional essay component. That's another difference. There are overall of 5 sections as opposed to 2 sections in SAT. That's another difference. They're largely testing you on English and maths. From that perspective, it's very similar. One of the other major difference is about the acceptability of ACT. If you are a US citizen and if you are 100% sure that US is the geography where you want to send your kid or the child wants to go there, whether you do an SAT or ACT, there is no difference at all. You could go ahead, write either of the exam. They are equally acceptable by all universities in US. No college will specifically ask you for any one exam. However, if you want to apply to, let's say, India as well, with the SAT scores, please note, ACT is not acceptable in Indian colleges as of today, as we speak. It's only SAT which is acceptable in those 40 universities. However, ACT is not acceptable. So the acceptability of ACT outside of US is lesser as compared to SAT. So if you are very sure about US, then either of them is good. However, if you're not sure about that, and if you are looking to explore outside of US options as well, then you might want to rethink and may want to stick to just the SAT because of the acceptability factor. So that's an important criteria that you need to consider when you're picking between the 2 exams. Now let's try and understand as an exam how it is different, right? So as I said, there are 5 different sections: English, math, reading, science, essay. Science, I know there might be some questions. I'll come back to this. There's a lot of myth around this science section. In terms of scoring, ACT is scored on a scale of 1 to 36, 36 being the maximum and 1 being the lowest. And then the average of all the 4 sections is calculated, and that becomes your final score. 33 out of 36 is roughly about a 99th percentile. So you have to target a score of 33 plus if you want to apply to, let's say, top 20 universities, 30 universities, right? That's an ideal score for you. Similarly, 1500 out of 1600 is roughly about 99th percentile. So that should be your target score if you want to apply to, let's say, the top 20, 30 universities, right? So that's in terms of the scoring, how it kind of works. Now let's deep dive into individual sections. The first section is ACT English, very, very similar to the grammar section of that, right? So consider this like an ACT English grammar section where you have 75 questions and you have 45 minutes. So you only have 36 seconds per question. Do you remember? I said, remember the time in SAT, you had 1.19 minutes per question in SAT. However, here you only have 36 seconds per question. So which is crazily less as compared to SAT. So that basically means you have to be really, really quick when you're attempting an ACT exam, unlike SAT where you have more time. However, remember, in ACT, questions are going to be a lot more straightforward and simple as opposed to SAT. Now, that becomes an important factor. As a student, are you somebody who's okay with difficult question, but you need more time? Or are you somebody who's okay to be under time pressure, but you prefer to have easier questions? Now, between the two, you can pick one of the 2 exams. So that could be another important differentiating factor between the 2 exams. In terms of what they're testing you on English section, it's exactly the same. There you had standard English convention and information ideas. It's exactly the same here. They're largely testing your grammar skills in the English section. The second section that you have is maths. Again, very similar. 60 minutes, 60 question, 1 minute per question. Whereas in SAT, you had 1.59 minutes per question. So it's not just in English. Also in maths, you have to be really, really quick. So you're allowed to use the calculator here as well, but you have to be quick. So that becomes an important differentiating factor. In terms of the topic that they're testing you on, you have algebra, you have geometry, you have trigonometry. So very similar to what you have in SAT, but please note the number of questions, and you will encounter out of 60, almost about 25 questions, if not more, 23 to 25 questions are coming from geometry and trigonometry. That means roughly about 40% of your exam in ACT math is coming from geometry and trigonometry. Only about 60% is coming from algebra. So that's another difference. As a student, if you are somebody who's not very comfortable with algebra, you might want to look at ACT. However, if you're not very comfortable with geometry and trigonometry, you may want to look at SAT, right? So that's another differentiating factor between the two exams that you would encounter. Third section is the reading section, very similar to the SAT English, where you have to read the only difference is there you're reading the paras, here you're reading the passage. So you'll read one entire passage and then answer the 10 questions pertaining to it. That's the difference between the two exams. Average time per question is roughly about 52 seconds. Let's consider that it is still comparable with regards to the SAT. What are they testing you on? Exactly the same. Prose fiction, social science, humanities, natural science. So you will have passages from different zones. And I think it's as good as what you will encounter in the SAT. So I think from that perspective, nothing changes here. What they are testing you on, they're pretty much testing you on exactly the same thing. Nothing changes from the topic that they're testing you on or the passage type that they're testing you. The fourth section, which is the ACT science section, and I think there's a lot of myth around this. So, a lot of parents and families come to me and say, hey, Rajdeep, you know what, my child wants to do major, a STEM major. So should we be doing ACT because there's a science, or my child has dropped science in grade 9, grade 10th. So should I not be doing ACT science, right? So let me help you understand. In ACT science, there is no science as such. You are reading science-based passages and answering the question. So it's predominantly a reading section that you are encountering in the ACT science section. Hope that helps you clarify. In total, you have 40 questions. You have 35 minutes to solve them. You will have 6 to 7 passages. You read those passages, answer the question. Obviously, if you have done those experiments, if you have those science-based background knowledge, you will be at an advantage, no second thought about it. But even if not, you will have to consider it like an unseen passage and do it. And you roughly have about 52 to 53 seconds to solve these ACT science questions. What are they testing you on? They're broadly categorized into 3 different categories: data representation, research summary, and conflicting viewpoint passages. Data representation passages are nothing but which will have some experimental results given to you. You need to look at this data and then answer the questions. That's data representation. Research summary is nothing but where you have, let's say an individual has done some experiment. They have presented different results to you. They have conducted this experiment. So you will have the experimental result, but you will also have some theoretical bit about it and probably their conclusion as well. So it's a lot more theoretical than what you will encounter in data representation kind of passages. The last one is conflicting viewpoint passages, which is nothing but where you will find, as the name suggests, 2 people or 3 different people who are having conflicting viewpoints about a particular topic and presented in the form of para or passage. And then you have to read that passage and answer the question. So that is conflicting viewpoint. And obviously, as the name suggests, this is the most theoretical one out of all the 3 passages. And hence, it requires more time for solving this passage. So that's about the ACT science section, and that's about the entire ACT per se. Now, as I said in the very beginning, I'll try and help you differentiate between these 2 exams. I hope I was able to bring out all those pointers about the difference. But I'm pretty sure even then, it will be difficult to take a call between the 2 exams. And what we as a company recommend, any parent, any family who come to us about this with this question, we ask them to write a free diagnostic test. We ask them to do 1 test for SAT, 1 for ACT, and let the child decide along with our counselors in terms of what is the right exam for them. Should they be doing an SAT? Should they be doing an ACT? This is the link for the exam. We will drop it in the chat section. We are also recording this session. Post this, we will also be sending you the recording along with the link for this. Anybody who wants to write this exam, feel free to write this exam, or else you could drop us a call or a message and we'll help you with that as well. So that's what we recommend to the students. Write the exam for yourself, see which one you are comfortable with, and then move ahead with the particular exam. So that's about the SAT, ACT. The next exam that I want to quickly cover is about PSAT, which is called preliminary SAT or a practice SAT. This is nothing but a shorthand and a simplified version of the SAT, right? So it's exactly like SAT, but considered like a practice SAT. So you can do a PSAT 8, PSAT 9, PSAT 10. That means you can write it in grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11th as well, right? But first of all, why should somebody be writing PSAT? So people write PSAT because it is considered to be a practice test for SAT. So they want to understand globally where they stand right now in terms of their preparation. That's why people write PSAT. Second, some people write PSAT because it's also, some students wants to apply for summer schools in US for building their profile, and there PSAT plays an important role. So some people write PSAT for their summer school program. Now, some people write PSAT. If you write PSAT, please note, this is important. If you write PSAT, if you're a US citizen, if the child is an OCI card holder and the child is in grade 11, if you write PSAT, it is also known as NMSQT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And hence, it is important for you to do this exam if you want to be eligible for this particular scholarship. But please note, only OCI card holder and only grade 11th, right? That's the applicability of NMSQT. These are the reason why people write PSAT. It happens only once a year. In some cases, some schools do conduct it. If in case your schools don't, then you will have to write to the college board, figure out which is the school in your city which is conducting this exam, and then you can go ahead and register as a private candidate and write the PSAT. Is it advisable or recommended to write it? I mean, I'm not a great fan of PSAT. I'm pretty okay even if you have not done the PSAT, because you can always do a practice outside on your own and figure out where you stand in terms of the exam, unless, as I said, for the scholarship or for your summer school, you plan to write it. So that's about the PSAT. In terms of the exam, in terms of the questions that they're testing you, it's exactly like the SAT. So no change on that aspect. The fourth exam that I want to touch upon, and this is a huge topic, I may not be able to cover everything here, but I will just give you a glimpse for the next couple of minutes. We are having a next webinar, which is happening on, I think 9th of September. We will be sharing the link for that. If in case you are interested, do drop in your messages saying that you're interested to attend the next one, and we will register you for that webinar as well. So AP stands for Advanced Placement Courses. Now, what are these? Now, try and understand, in India, we have multiple curriculum. There's CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, IB, State Board, and so on, right? Unlike in India, in US, they don't have a national curriculum. The curriculum varies from state to state. So every state follows their own curriculum. And that's when College Board, which is the same organization which conducts the SAT, came up and said, hey, you know what, why don't you write APs, which is Advanced Placement Courses, and it will help everybody across US and outside of US to have a common standard level, right? So AP is considered like a curriculum which is offered in US within the school itself. However, when you are in India or outside of US, anywhere else, you could write AP exam as a private candidate. AP happens only once a year, which is in the month of May. And hence, planning this exam becomes super critical for every student if in case you plan to write it. AP are not really very easy exam per se. They are college level courses, which can be written in as early as grade 9th, grade 10th, grade 11th, or in grade 12th. Scores are valid for 5 years. So AP scores are valid for 5 years. So you could write as early as grade 9th as well. So don't worry from that perspective. But I think the bigger question here is, why should I be even thinking about APs, right? I mean, what's the advantage do I get? And remember, AP is not a must-do course. SAT, ST are must-do courses. AP is not a must-do. It's a good to do only if you're looking to target, let's say, top 20, 30 universities, right? Now, why should I be doing APs? One of the major reasons why people write APs because they want to stand out in college application process. I think that is a super important point, because if you have done a college level course and you're showing it to the college saying, hey, you know what, I've done an AP calculus, I've done an AP statistics, I've done an AP microeconomics course, AP biology course. So you're showing to the college that I've done more than what my peers have done, and I'm more academically inclined, right? So that helps you to stand out in our college admission process. But please note, it will not make sense if you're scoring 60% in school maths and you're going ahead and writing AP calculus. Then it doesn't really help, right? Because your academics has to be in place to try and think about building the next level of profile in academics, right? So I think that's one. Second, it also helps you to earn college credit. So remember, when you're, again, let me take in US as an example, and let's take computer science as an example. So let's say if you want to graduate as an engineer, you need to get certain credits. Let's say 120 credit is what you need to get. The moment you get 120 credits, you are eligible to graduate from the college, right? And how do you earn these credits? Every subject that you do, you earn certain credits, right? So for example, I'll do maths, I'll earn 4 credits. I'll do chemistry, I'll earn another 3 credits, right? So that's how the credit policy works. Now, if you have done AP courses while you are in India itself, you earn college credits while you are in India itself. So it helps you to earn college credits which indirectly helps you to save a lot of money, because every credit in US is a paid credit, right? So you pay almost about $1,000 to $1,500 to earn a particular credit. So you actually save that much money if you are doing such courses while you're in India. Additionally, you're also saving a lot of time, because if you've done those courses while you are in India, you can skip the introductory level courses and you can move to the next level of courses, right? So that's the other advantage that you will have. You can skip the introductory courses. And as I said in the very beginning, it helps to showcase to the college that you have built the rigor. So that's the reason why a lot of people write APs. Now, again, there is always a question, should an IB and A-level student be writing APs because they anyways get college credit for the courses that they do in school versus CBSE and ICSC? So I know it's a lot bigger topic, but in general, CBSE, ICSC students should definitely try and see if they can write APs. However, IB and A-level student can skip writing APs. However, if in case they want to, then there are certain subjects that they need to pick, which are maybe not correlated directly to what you're doing in school, right? So this is very, very high level guidelines. But as I said, this is a very, very vast topic in itself, which we will be covering up in our upcoming webinar. So that's about APs. With that, we have covered up the 4 tests that we wanted to cover. Now, let me quickly help you with the timelines. And let me revisit the first slide that we started off from. We started our discussion talking about 4 pillars. First pillar was academics, grade 9, 10th, 11th, 12th. So that's your academics, 9, 10th, 11th actual score, 12th predicted score. That's super important. Second pillar that I spoke about is profile development, which is here. So everything which is happening in grade 9, 10th, 11th that you're doing to showcase to the college that you're good at it is your profile development activities. The third is your final college application, which happens in grade 12. The fourth, which we have discussed today, is your standardized test, which is your PSAT, SATs, ACTs, APs. In terms of the timelines, grade 10th is a good time for you to start looking at SATs or ACTs. Try and figure out which is the right test for you. If you're in IGCS, if you're in Indian curriculum, then the summer break of 10th, right after your boards are done, is the best time for you to start preparing for your SAT and ACT. And then the August of that year or October of that year is the right time for you to go ahead and write your first attempt of SAT, ACT. And then the second attempt can be done at a later stage, depending on what your scores are and how much you want to improve. If you're already in grade 11, start as soon as possible and try and finish off this exam. If you're in grade 12, I don't know if you really have time left. The only attempt which you have left is August, which you can't write, which is happening next week. And then October. October is the last attempt that you can write if you're in grade 12 right now already. So you're very, very late. You should start yesterday. PSAT, as I said, can be written in grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. Grade 11 only for the US citizen, as I said. So that's about the high level timelines. I understand this is a very, very broad timelines. If you would like to understand specifically for your child, feel free to set up a one-on-one call. We are happy to sit with you, each one of you individually, and help you chalk out this plan for your child, because every child is individual and also they're doing different curriculums, right? So we also need to look at your planning from the individual curriculum perspective and then fit these boxes into it, right? So feel free to reach out to us. Ayush is there from my team. He will drop a message in the chat section with regards to the people who you can contact, call, message right after this webinar, and they'll be helping you set up the call as well. Now, as I said in the very beginning, I said there are a lot of colleges in India which are accepting SAT scores. As we speak, there are almost about 40 universities which are accepting SAT scores in India. Some of them are Ashoka, Azim Premji, Flame, Kriya, Shivnadar, Plaksha, Manavrachana, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of liberal arts universities which have come up in India which are accepting SAT scores. So instead of writing individual exams for each of these universities, you can write one single exam and apply through that exam to all these universities. So you do have that option as well. Now that's about the topics that we wanted to cover. Now a quick brief about how we as a company help you in terms of your prep. So as I said, we help students prepare for SATs, we help prepare them for ACTs, we help them to prepare for APs, finding out the right subject which you need to pick for the APs, and then also help you prepare for almost about 13 subjects in APs that we do. For today's, I only want to focus on our ST program. We divide our program into 4 phases. We call it phase 0, 1, 2, and 3. Phase 0 is about doing a diagnostic test, which is SAT or ACT. The idea is just to figure out which is the right test for you and also to figure out the starting point. you can sign up for phase 0 for free. There is no charge associated to that. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to set up a diagnostic test for you. Once that gets done, we move to phase 1. Phase 1 is where there is live online tutoring happening. There are roughly about 40 hours of live sessions for English, which is reading, writing, and maths component that we cover. And pertaining to 40 hours, there are another 40 hours of assignment that the child has to do. So if you're doing a 2-hour session today, you will have 2 hours of assignment that you need to go back and work on. There are 2 sessions per week which are happening. And this will continue for about 2.5 months. So this is the point where you're learning new concepts, strategies, techniques in the phase 1. Once this gets over, we move to phase 2. And from here, our program becomes a personalized program. We assign a dedicated mentor to every student. This mentor will look at student performance from phase 1 assignments, figure out the areas we have done well and the areas where they've not, where they still need to work upon. And based on that, they chalk out a study plan for every individual, which includes doing a lot of sectional tests, assignments, practices, going through multiple videos, and so on. This is the point where they're focusing on individual sections. Once this gets over, they move to phase 3, which is largely about mock tests, where you are doing at least 10 to 15 full-length tests before you write your final exam. And all these tests that I'm talking about are going to be in the digital ST format. We have our own platform that you get along with this entire course, wherein you will be attempting all the questions, whether it's practice question, whether it's full-length test, and you get a detailed report analysis automatically right after each exam. We also have video answer explanation for each and every question, which is done by our faculty. Additionally, you get about 50 hours of concept videos. If in case you have missed any particular session, you can always go back and revisit these concept videos, which are available at your fingertip for you to revise and recap your concepts at any point of time. We provide you support for 2 attempts or for 1 year. So not just 1 attempt, 2 attempts. As I said in the very beginning, you can write these exams multiple times, unlike Indian entrance exams. So we do provide you support for 2 attempts of prep. So that's overall how we work. However, this is a full program. We also provide a lot of customization into it, where you could just take the English only program, the maths only program. You could just take a self-paced course where you just take our material and do it on your own if you think you can. We also have a SET mock test series program where you can just sign up for a 5-test series and just finish it off on your own as well. And there is no support provided by the faculty in program. So there are multiple programs depending on what is the right fit for you. That's something that we are here to provide and support you with. As I said, feel free to reach out to the team. They'll figure out what is the right thing for you and then guide you accordingly on those modules. In the past, these are some of our top admits in the past, in the last 7 years. We have students who are studying in MIT, Stanford, Princeton. These are some of the top universities that we have just mentioned. Obviously, not everybody gets into these top universities. The list is huge, but these are some of the top ones that you probably would have heard of, and hence, they feature here as well. These are some of our students' top admits. In terms of our journey, in terms of our scores, the highest digital ST score that we have right now is 1590 out of 1600. The average SET score is about 1450. The highest ACT score that we have is 36 on 36. The average ACT score that we have is about 32 out of 36. The highest AP score that we have is about 5 on 5. The average is about 4.6 out of 5. And currently, as we speak, we offer about 13 subjects, and we are in a process of adding 3 more. So we will be offering 16 subjects starting this academic year. Our AP courses will start as soon as late September, early October timelines. With that, I have covered what I wanted to cover in today's webinar. I see there are a lot of questions already in the chat section. I will be taking up those questions. But before I do that, I would like to thank each and every one of you who have been patient enough listening to me for the last 40 minutes. I hope it was useful. If you find it useful, you will get the recording of it. Feel free to share it with whoever you would like to. Just make sure we are able to pass on the right information. The idea here is to make sure everybody is well aware and then sort of taking their decisions at the right point of time. I meet a lot of parents who come to me in grade 12 and they're already very, very late and they hardly have time to do anything. And then unfortunately, students end up taking a gap year and, end up, wasting that 1 year as well. Not really wasting, but yes, I mean, if you know it in advance, I think it'll always be good from that perspective. So you will get the recording of this. Feel free to share it in your network, in your class group, friends group, family group, society group, wherever you can. If in case you would like to connect with us on a one-on-one basis, here are the 3 numbers. For India, you can connect on the first 2 numbers. For Dubai, you can connect to the 3rd number. You will be able to reach out to Mr. Sharath from Dubai as well. With that, let me start taking up the questions that I already have on the chat section. Feel free to start sending up more questions if you have any. Okay, I just read two comments. Could I please request you to talk a little slowly? Okay, sorry, I did not see this, Mitu, but don't worry, you will have the recording of it. Because there's a lot of content, I wanted to make sure I'm able to cover all of it. But don't worry, you will have the recording of it. You can see it at 0.5 speed or 0.75 speed. You'll be able to probably understand all of it. Another question from Anand, sir, do we have complex number question in maths section? No, they have been taken away, Arnab. You don't have complex number anymore now. Nikki, difference between ST, ST. I think, Nikki, you have asked this question before I have discussed everything. So I hope now that answers your question. Another question from Radha, sir, will you share this PPT with us? No, you won't have the PPT, Radha. You will only have the video recording of this particular webinar with you. Another question from Arman, what about European countries, universities? European countries don't need you to do SAT, Arman. They're largely looking at your school grades. And if in case there are certain universities, they might ask you for interviews and specific other exams as well. Another question from Meenu, could you please tell which universities in India accept SAT scores? I think Meenu, you had asked this question earlier. I think I presented this on the slide later. So I hope you have the answer now. Tejashwini Sharma, will you please explain the score concept again? I think you're talking about SAT adaptive exam scores. So very simple, right? So think of it like this. So there is, in English, there are two stages, stage 1, stage 2. In stage 1, if I have not done well, I will get an easy stage 2 paper. If I've done well, I will get a difficult stage 2 paper, right? Because they want to, so based on stage 1, they benchmark me, right? So let's say if I have not done well, so they will say, okay, now this child can get minimum of 400, maximum of 600 in English. Depending on how I perform in stage 2, whether it will be 400, 450, 500, 550, 600, that will get decided depending on my stage 2 performance, right? Similarly, if you have done well, let's say you write the exam and you have gotten 16 out of 20, and that means your bracket is anywhere between 600 to 800 now. Depending on how you perform in stage 2, your score minimum is 600. It could be 600, 620, 650, 670, 700, 750, or 800, right? So that's how the scoring kind of works. So depending on your stage 1 performance, your upper and lower limit of your section scores get decided. And depending on your performance in stage 2, your final score gets decided, which falls in that bracket. I hope that answers the question, Tejasun. Ishan, is it same criteria for all US universities, including Ivy Leagues? That's right, Ishan. It's exactly the same criteria for all the US universities. Another question from Shika, can you recommend some study guides for the SAT exam? The only study guide that I can recommend, Shika, is Khan Academy. That's a free resource that you get. Feel free to visit the Khan Academy and you'll be able to find some material for you to start on the SAT prep. Dhanavat Pawan, can you show us some questions which are asked in exam? Sorry, Dhanavat, I think we have limitation in terms of time, but I think one of my team member has, you can log into the diagnostic test. Feel free to write the diagnostic. You'll be able to see all the questions on your own as well. Another question from Agrim Jain. If someone has dropped science, can they even attempt the ACT? Will they be allowed to sit in the exam? Great question, Agrim. I hope I have answered that question. Yes, you can. There is no correlation of you having or not having science in school versus writing the ACT. You can definitely write the ACT exam even without the science. So don't worry from that perspective at all. Another question from Nikki. When is the best time grade to write the SAT? I hope I have answered this question at a later stage where I was talking about the timelines. Ideally, the 10th summer break, after you're done with your 10th board exam, the summer break that you get, that's the ideal time for you to start preparing for your SATs. Pooja, students in IB curriculum are not required to do AP. Please guide such subject or if you meant for AI students. No, Pooja, that's not what I meant. There are subjects, there are students who do APs even if you are doing IB as well. But as I said, you have to pick the subjects wisely, and that will depend on what are your HLs, what are your SLs. So I will need to have a lot more information for me to suggest you any subjects. As I said, feel free to reach out to us on a one-on-one basis. Happy to sit with you and help you understand which are the right APs for you to pick. Another question from Meenu, does IIIT Hyderabad accept SAT scores? Yes, they do, but only for OCI card holder, not for everyone. So if you are an OCI card holder, if you're a US citizen, then IIIT Hyderabad will accept the SAT scores. Another question from Divit Bhutani. Do you help to get as research program for kids for computer science, AI or data science? Which AP should we go for? To answer the first question, Divit, we don't do it directly, but we do have partner organization who work on this. We can help you get in touch with those organizations. They will be able to provide you support with research program. For computer science, AI or data science, which AP should we go for? Again, it's not just based on the major. I think it's also about the grade, which is the right grade the child is in right now. It's also about the curriculum and then the major. So these are the three important factors that we consider when we are deciding which is the right AP for you. As I said, again, it's a one-on-one thing. We need to have all those information before I could even recommend you any particular AP that the child should be doing. Again, same, Rachna, for computer science, what all AP exams are needed? I need to have the student grade, curriculum, major is something that you have shared. And then based on that, I should be able to recommend, because it's not a generic advice. It has to be very, very specific. And as I said, for APs, we have the next webinar where we will talk about how to pick the right APs. Please feel free to attend that as well. Okay, somebody has asked already. Please send us details of the 9th September session on APs. Vikas Deep Katyal. Definitely, Vikas, we will do that. Anybody, whoever is interested, feel free to drop a message. I think in the morning, you probably would have received a message about a reminder. If you want to attend 9th September session on AP as well, or the next session on APs, drop a message and we will send you the link for the, we'll send you the invitation for it. Another question from Nandita. Will you recommend AP for IB students? Yes, we do, Nandita. But as I said, you have to be very, very careful which AP would you pick. Another question from OnePlus. Okay, there's no name. Can you please send SAT syllabus, time duration, and details here? Sorry, I don't have it ready right now. I think you can visit College Board website. College Board is the organization which conduct this exam. That's where you will be able to find very, very detailed about the subjects and syllabus. Another question from Nasreen Mirza. What is the fee structure for SAT? Are you talking about the program or the actual fees? The actual fees is roughly about $125 for exam. Our fees will depend on program to program that you opt for. Again, feel free to reach out to us one-on-one. Happy to share the brochure with you. Another question from Saloni. I have completed my 12th this year in March. Is it possible for me to do what, Saloni, right? So do you want to apply this year? Because the application process has already started. So I think feel free to reach out on one-on-one. Let me talk to you and see if, the above number is, the first one is my number, 8123829822. Feel free to reach out. Happy to have a call and discuss it with you. Agreem Jan, what is complex? Complex number is just a topic, just like you have algebra, right? Geometry. Complex number is just one topic. Agreem. Don't worry if you have not heard of it. Meetu, thank you so much. This was very helpful. Thanks, Meetu. Thanks for attending. Is there any list of SAT acceptance of university that you could share, please? Did not get your question, Pooja. And there is no such list. So I think when you go to different university website, in the admission of their undergrad, they will mention whether they are SAT optional, SAT blind, SAT mandatory. There is no sort of ready-made list of SAT acceptance. SAT is accepted in all universities in India, all, right? Excluding the blind universities, SCT blind, which are predominantly your California-based universities. Another question from Arav Jain. For engineering colleges, do you have to take physics and chem SCT? No, Arav, there is no physics and chem SCT anymore. They have been stopped for the last 2 years. They used to be called as subject SCTs. They are no longer being offered. So it's not offered, so you can't write it. You still have to write the SCT itself. Can you send the video recording of this session? Definitely, if you have registered, you will get the video recording of this in your mail. Another question from Abhishek. How will the SAT help in students wanting to pursue medicine? Irrespective of whatever you want to pursue, Abhishek, in US, you have to have the SAT scores. Doesn't matter whether it's medicine. Also, just to help you understand, in US, you don't apply to medicine directly. You will do a pre-med and then you get into medicine, right? So to get into pre-med, you have to have the SAT scores. And then you write another exam after 3 years and then get into medicine, right? So that's how the journey for medicine works in US per se, Abhishek. Another question from Ritula Talwar. In which class ST has to be taken preferably? As I said, end of grade 10th, early grade 11th, that's the ideal time of writing the SAT. But there are students who are in international curriculum who do it in grade 10th as well. So 10th and 11th is the ideal time. Another question from Ishan, do you support only on the exam or application process? Feel free to reach out, Ishan. We do help with the other part as well through our various partner organization. Another question from Pooja, very important question. Is there a super scoring in SAT exam? How? Yes, Pooja, SAT do allows you to super score, but it's not SAT which allow you to super score, it's the universities. So for some of the other people who may not know about this term, super scoring is where you're allowed to take your English score from one test and maths from the other test. That is super scoring, but that's a university phenomena. There are certain universities which allow you to submit your super scores. However, some university will ask you to submit all your scores, and then there is third category of university which will say submit only the best score. So there you can't super score. So it will vary from universities to universities, Pooja. It's not a SAT determined phenomena. Another question from Nandita, will we write as stage 1 and stage 2 back to back on the same day or some days gap? Oh, you write it back to back, Nandita. It's a 2 hour 40-minute exam. In that 2 hour 40-minute, you write everything. Tejashwini, thanks. Ritula, which school board is good in class 11th and 12th to apply for ST, CBSE or ICSE? There is no correlevance to the board to SAT, Ritula. Doesn't matter whether you are in CBSE or ICSE. As I said, it's only up until grade 10th level maths or English, right? So honestly speaking, you have nothing to do with 11th and 12th with the SAT. So the board has no relevance here. Tejaswini, where we can find all the policy related to scholarship given by university to the student who have attempted SAT. There is no one place, unfortunately, Tejaswini, where you can find all policies. When you're applying, consider that it's very, very, very difficult to get any scholarship for undergrad in US. Let's consider, start from there. If you get something, great, but start from the fact that you probably may not get any scholarship, right? There are a lot of ways to get it, but it's not easy. It is difficult. So start from that fact, but there's no one place where you could find all of them. Nidhi Goyal, any coaching for AP exam? Yes, we do offer prep for AP exam as well, Nidhi. We will talk about it in detail on 9th. But if you want to understand before that, feel free to reach out on any of the below numbers. We will take up, we'll be happy to discuss it with you on one-on-one. We offer APs for about 13 subjects as we speak. Another question from Ritula, validity for the SAT scores. SAT scores are valid for 5 years, Ritula. Saloni, I have completed my 12th this year. Is it possible for me to do now? Yes, Saloni, you can. But as I said, time, you hardly have time left. So, feel free to reach out to us as quickly as possible if you're interested, because if you're in grade 12, your thing has already, your time has already started because application process already started. You have to apply in the next 2 months. And you have to, if you're not done the SAT, you have to do it in the next 2 months. You don't have any other option. Another question from Pooja. What is super scoring SAT score? I hope I have answered that question, right, Pooja? I think you had asked about super scoring, right? So is there a follow-up question? Not sure. Maybe you can just put it up again. But I think this is something you had probably mentioned earlier. Another question from Manish. Triple IT Hyderabad accepts SAT score for Gulf students as well. Yeah. Manish, anybody which is NRI, right? Outside of Indian resistance, Indian students, right? For them, they accept SAT scores. Doesn't matter whether it's Gulf or Singapore or Indonesia. It could be anywhere, but non-Indian residents, right? No NRIs. Another question from Samyukta. When can a person write or attempt their AP exams? As I said, Samyukta, you could write APs in grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. You're allowed to use, you can submit your AP scores are valid for 5 years. What is the best month to apply in the US university? There's nothing called best month, Shika. The application process starts in August and it is open up until January of the year when you're in grade 12th. Another question from Minu. Does Triple ID otherwise accept SASCO for Hong Kong students? Yes, Minu, they do. As I said, if you are a non-Indian resident, they do accept SAT scores. Nasreen, validity of ST. I think I've answered that question. 5 years. Can we get a recording? I missed the session due to family emergency. Definitely, Ruchika, you will have the recording if you have registered on the link. If you have your email ID, you will definitely have the recording. Validity for the SAT score, 5 years, Ritu. Nidhi, after second year in Indian student can apply in USA and transfer his credit after. Yes, Nidhi, you can do it. That's called transfer, but not after first year, predominantly after first year, not after second year. Another question from Nikki. How many months of prep is needed to write SAT to get a good score? At least about 4 to 6 months is what we generally look at. Abhishek, will your team help us in drafting the SOP in the later stage? Yes, Abhishek, we will be providing you the support through our various organizations that we work with. So yes, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be able to provide you help for that as well. Nidhi, thanks. Ritu, thanks for such an enlightening session. Glad you liked it, Ritu. Pooja, yes, you answered. Thanks. Divit, what score is considered good for SAT? Divit, as I mentioned, 1500 out of 1600 is the 99th percentile. So you're in the top 1 percentile bracket. So ideally, if the child can get that score, nothing like it. From where can we get the syllabus for SAT? Ritula, you can visit College Board website. That's the best place. That's the official website. They will give you the SAT score, the entire complete SAT syllabus. Pooja, thanks for the informative session. Thanks, Pooja. Nasreen, thank you. The session was very helpful. Ridula, how many months of preparation is required to score in SAT? As I said, 4 to 6 months. What is your fee structure for the self-study plan? Nanda, we can share the details. You can connect with us on one-on-one basis. Happy to share it on a one-on-one basis. Shika, can you tell the timelines of the spring, fall, and summer session? Not sure if I've understood your question, Shika. Sorry, maybe you can rewrite it and post it again. Nidhi, AP exam is once in a year in May. That's right, Nidhi. AP happens only once a year, which is in the month of May. Nikki, thank you for all the information. We'll connect back to get more details. Looking forward to it, Nikki. Great, Nidhi. Thank you.